All right, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles now. My name is Chase Sr. Hope you're all getting set to have a fantastic weekend, and we have another loaded show coming your way. Eagles fans are going to like this news. A good sign for A.J. Brown's future with Philadelphia. Brian Baldinger thinks that the Eagles are a good fit for Maxx Crosby if Howie Roseman wanted to make that trade. The fifth-year option cost projected for Jaylen Carter is very, very steep. And why is Emmanuel Acho hating on Jalen Hurts? It's all coming your way right now. Let's go. Welcome into the program. As always, thank you so much for watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. On this show, we discuss the latest happenings around the birds, giving you videos every single day year-round. And you know that we like to give you informative content, but we also like to have fun. And I know a lot of you like to have fun as well. Looking ahead to St. Patrick's Day, our Valentine's Day merch went crazy here at Chat Sports. We're running it back with some St. Patrick's Day gear. If you want to join the Philadelphia drinking team and rep the birds while you're at it, limited edition shirts are available right now. All you have to do is use that link down below, chatsports.com/EaglesGreen. That is chatsports.com/EaglesGreen. Rep the birds with the Kelly Green shirt while you're out during St. Patrick's Day weekend, taking down some brewskis. Philly drinking team established in 2026. You can join the squad again, chatsports.com/EaglesGreen. All right, let's begin here. As for the latest on Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown, talked a little bit about this last night on the show. Be sure to check that video out as well. But last week, during Super Bowl week, when we were in San Francisco, A.J. Brown making some headlines because he went on Micah Parsons' podcast, and Micah Parsons had said that the Eagles got close to trading for Micah, Jaylen Carter potentially, and a first-round pick. But really, the notable takeaways from that sit-down interview is what A.J. said and where he seemed to be from a mental standpoint. He said that Philadelphia is home. He's looking forward to 2026 with all of the new offensive changes made with the coaching staff. Sean Mannion being hired as offensive coordinator, coming from that Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur tree. Sean Mannion, highly regarded in NFL circles. He's also been given power to hire a lot of coaches who are familiar with the scheme that the Eagles are going to introduce and implement. Now, even with A.J. Brown saying that, it hasn't stopped A.J. Brown trade rumors from slowing down. And look, I can see why. He's a star wide receiver, one of the best in the NFL at his craft. He has been unhappy with the Eagles over the last couple of years. He's let that be known, multiple instances of that. And I joke about this, but I'm kind of for real. I mean, the Eagles have become like America's team. Everybody loves talking about the Eagles. And of course, they have their lovers, they have their detractors, but when the Eagles are playing a game, they're going to drive television ratings. When there's a talking point around the Eagles for talking heads, everybody from producers and hosts who are putting those shows together know, okay, if we talk about the Eagles, there's going to be a lot of interest there. And so Jeremy Fowler yesterday on ESPN did say this, and I respect Jeremy Fowler's reporting. I put stock into it because I think he's one of the top, most trustworthy NFL insiders out there. So I do take what he says and I'll credit him with the report and I'll trust him when he speaks with some of these sources. He said some executives around the league do expect that the Eagles will at least entertain a trade for A.J. Brown. The Eagles can build around Devontae Smith, some other pieces, Saquon, maybe add a wide receiver. And this is an NFL draft that is very deep at the wide receiver spot. I certainly have some thoughts on that as well. We'll see what happens with the Eagles and A.J. Brown. I don't think he gets traded. I don't want him to get traded because it doesn't help the Eagles get closer to the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl championship. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. But if the Eagles were to trade A.J., I think that Devontae Smith would have a monster year in 2026, and I do think that Smitty can be a number one wide receiver. And I think that during his Eagles tenure, even though he's gone over 1,000 yards in 3 of 5 seasons, he's been underutilized. There's no reason why Smitty can't put up Jackson Smith and Jigba-like numbers, because you can make the argument that Devontae Smith is more talented than JSN, who just led the NFL in receiving yards and won Offensive Player of the Year. Now, when you're in an offense alongside AJ, Saquon Barkley, you've had Dallas Goedert, and you have an offense that likes to run it a lot, I don't think that Devontae Smith is going to have 163 targets, 119 catches, and almost 1,800 yards and 15 yards per catch with 10 touchdowns. I think that he can get close to those touchdown numbers. The point that I'm making here, though, is that Smitty can be utilized like JSN. Outside, inside, in the backfield, pre-snap motion, man. You get him the ball in some gadget plays. You allow him to pick up yards after the catch. Like JSN, he is a silky smooth route runner who plays bigger than his size. He has really trustworthy hands, and I think that he's a stellar player. Now, going back to AJ, I'm on the record again in saying this. It's unbelievable that some people will make assumptions and say, Chase, why do you want AJ Brown traded? I've never said that, but I can see from Howie Roseman's standpoint and the Eagles' organizational point of view, if they wanted to trade AJ, if he became too much of a distraction, or if Howie Roseman was blown away by a trade offer, first-round pick, a second-round pick. But I don't think the Eagles should trade AJ Brown, because it's not a move that gets you closer to a Super Bowl championship. And is this a good sign for AJ's future in staying with the Eagles? So on his Instagram, he posted this photo here that we're popping up. The details for his football camp coming up here this spring. What do you notice here? AJ Brown is in an Eagles uniform. And what's the hashtag? Fly Eagles Fly. I tweeted about this. Is this a good sign for AJ Brown's future with Philadelphia, hosting another youth football camp in May in Allentown, just outside of Philadelphia? He's rocking an Eagles jersey, and he used the hashtag Fly Eagles Fly. If AJ Brown wanted out, if AJ Brown thought that he was going to get traded, would he be scheduling this football camp with a photo of him in an Eagles jersey using the hashtag Fly Eagles Fly? Would he have said what he said on Micah Parsons' podcast, that Philly is home and he's looking forward to the 2026 season? And so the talking heads nationally are going to beat a dead horse here and talking about an A.J. Brown trade. I think the Eagles know, especially with the dead cap charge of, $40+ million? And the fact that he's so valuable to this offense, they want to keep A.J. in 2026. And it's also a smart play. Give Sean Mannion an opportunity to coach and coordinate an offense that features number 11. Before we continue to push forward on today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That's one bit of good news for Eagles fans. And whether it's good news, bad news, I always have you covered and talking about the birds. That's why we're closing in on 145,000 subscribers. We get to this. Are the Philadelphia Eagles a trade destination for one of the top pass rushers in the game in Maxx Crosby of the Raiders? The relationship between Crosby and Las Vegas has gotten a little bit contentious. The Raiders sat him the final 2 games of the year because of a knee injury. That strained the relationship because Crosby left the building. He even admitted that he wasn't happy about that. This offseason, he is getting and undergoing and recovering from a meniscus procedure. And there's a lot of chatter about his unhappiness with Las Vegas, that he told Tom Brady that he doesn't want to be a member of the Raiders any longer, that he wants to play elsewhere to contend for a playoff spot and a Super Bowl, even though he's got the Raiders logo tatted on him. He doesn't want to work with Tom Brady and Alex Guerrero, all that stuff. Now, this becomes interesting for the Eagles because of this. We know that Howie Roseman loves himself an elite pass rusher. We know that Howie Roseman loves to acquire stars and go big game hunting. And so last offseason, when Myles Garrett had requested that trade, according to a bunch of reports and a lot of people who I spoke with at the NFL Combine, the Eagles' interest in Garrett was real. Now, Garrett, during the week of the Super Bowl, demanded that trade, but then the Browns gave him the biggest contract for a pass rusher ever, and he folded. He signed that deal. Don't necessarily blame him for getting that bag, but I'd love to see the likes of Maxx Crosby, Myles Garrett actually play for winning teams when the games actually matter. And this is also interesting because Crosby, after the Raiders played the Eagles at the Link late in the season, said this: if you love football, like that's what you dream of as a kid, playing in Philadelphia in December. Does Maxx Crosby want to be a Philadelphia Eagle? It's one of the top pass rushers in the game. I love the way that he plays the game with a relentless motor, always empties the tank, plays with great effort. He is a pass rushing technician. He hones his craft. Iron sharpens iron. And he would be the perfect Philadelphia Eagle with the way that he plays and approaches the game. Mike Garafolo on if Maxx Crosby could get traded to the Eagles and if Philadelphia could be a trade destination. He said this, big time. I would put the Eagles in the top 3, 5, whatever teams for Maxx Crosby if and when this thing opens up. And I do believe it's going to open up. Even though Crosby has said, and he shut down some of those trade rumors, I expect this speculation to gain some momentum. Now, Garafolo mentioned the top 3 to 5 teams. I would expect the Eagles to be one of those acquiring teams or one of those interested teams. One of the other ones is the New England Patriots. According to Diana Rossini and others, Maxx Crosby would love to play for Mike Vrabel. And I think that Super Bowl matchup between the Patriots and the Seahawks was glaring for New England because it went to show how far they are away from realistically competing for a Super Bowl because that game wasn't close. Now, I don't think it was the defense's problem. I think it was more of an offensive problem. But the Patriots, they have a lot of cap space, and they could look to acquire a player like Maxx Crosby. Then Brian Baldinger said this on Mad Max. I'm still waiting for them to build a statue of Reggie White. That's long overdue, by the way. But Maxx Crosby would be a pretty close modern-day Reggie in this town. I would say this. Newborn kids, they would name their son Max with 2 X's. The name Max would go crazy in Philadelphia, kind of like the name Chase went crazy in Philadelphia, not because of me, but Chase Utley becoming beloved in the city of brotherly love. Now, with Crosby, elite at his craft for sure. I do think that the last 2 years he's had some injury problems that are concerning. He's in his late 20s. How does he recover from that meniscus injury? He's had some knee problems, but when he's healthy, when he's right, a star-studded player. There's also the cost here. In trading for Mad Max, you'd probably have to give up 2 first-round picks. I mean, Jay Glazer was theorizing about this during Super Bowl week, and he said it could be more than the Micah Parsons trade. I mean, the Packers gave up 2 ones and other assets for Micah Parsons. So there would be the draft capital that you have to give up to a real rebuilding team in Las Vegas, but then you also look at the highest defensive cap hits in 2026. You have Chris Jones there leading the charge at $44+ million. Nick Bosa at 42. TJ Watt at 42. Brian Burns at 36.5. And then Maxx Crosby just under 36. Anytime you're making a move like this, a trade like this, where you're paying a lot and you're giving up a lot, there would be risk. But Howie Roseman is not risk averse. What say you? Should the Eagles trade for Maxx Crosby? Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comment section. T for trade, P for pass, comment down below. All right. Jaylen Carter is coming off an injury-plagued season in 2025, coming off that 2024 season in which he was a second-team All-Pro. When Jaylen Carter is engaged, when he's not spitting on Dak Prescott and getting kicked out of games, when he's healthy, he's one of the most disruptive and best players in the National Football League on the defensive side of the ball. And the Eagles' defensive performances with him compared to without him, pretty glaring. He's so disruptive. And Jaylen Carter is a player whose impact goes far beyond the box score. He's not going to put up gaudy numbers sometimes because he's getting swarmed with double teams, but that also gives opportunities to some of his teammates along the defensive line. And with him just completing another year in the NFL after he was drafted in 2023, he's been in the league for a couple of years now, 2023, 2024, 2025. So he is eligible to have that 5th-year option picked up for 2027. He is also contract extension eligible. And so this becomes a storyline and something to look out for Philadelphia and Howie Roseman because of how Howie Roseman likes to do business. The projected 5th-year option cost for Jaylen Carter is very steep. According to Spotrac, it's $27.2 million. Now, a couple things with this. Because Jaylen Carter was an All-Pro in 2024 and he got that accolade, the price has gone up. Because the salary cap is going up and the market at defensive tackle is very rich. Look at Chris Jones, for instance. It's also increased the value for players at that position. And of course, Jaylen Carter was a top 10 pick as well. So Howie Roseman always prefers to get contracts done early to get ahead of market value. And I think that Howie looks at a contract extension for Jaylen Carter this offseason long and hard. Knows his impact, knows he's a great player. Of course, there have been some character concerns. There would be a risk here, but he's 24 years old and he's going to be 25 in April. You got to figure out what's going on with those shoulders, but I wouldn't be surprised if this offseason we see a Jaylen Carter contract extension, and that's why the Eagles have allocated some financial capital and they've given themselves some financial flexibility to get moves done like this. And there's also a question that will come to the surface, right? We're talking about these Maxx Crosby trade rumors. Mike Garafolo, Brian Balding are saying that he'd be a great fit. They expect the Eagles to be in that bidding war for Maxx Crosby. The Eagles can go a couple different ways here. And it comes down to cash spending. Would you rather the Eagles lock up their homegrown stars like Jaylen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, all extension eligible this offseason? Or would you trade for an older player like Maxx Crosby? I think Maxx Crosby would be great with the Eagles, but honestly, I'd rather side with locking up some of the homegrown players who you have drafted and developed. They're younger. They're still going to cost a lot, but not as much as Maxx Crosby. And I think that organizational continuity is really important. Let's round out with this. Emmanuel Acho said what about Jalen Hurts? Now, Acho is a former Eagle who's obviously in the media space now. He never played with Jalen Hurts, but he's taken some shots at Jalen. And he said this about an interaction that he had with Jalen during Super Bowl week. I saw Jalen Hurts at the Super Bowl, sitting in the corner by himself with sunglasses on his phone. Read nothing into that, or read nothing into that, or read everything into that. Like, you're at a party with your peers. Why are you dolo? We've heard nothing but rumors about Jalen Hurts not being that cool with the people inside the Eagles locker room. I've seen everybody at the Super Bowl. Do you not have camaraderie with other people in the league? Emmanuel Acho will say this, but then other people will say that Jalen Hurts is a consummate pro, that he works his ass off, that he's a great teammate, and Acho will say that Jalen Hurts was by himself during Super Bowl week at a party. But then these pictures surface of Jalen Hurts being around people. Now, Acho references sunglasses. Hurts has the shades on here, but he's smiling. Guess who he's next to? Devontae Smith. Guess who is to his right in another photo? Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, just because Jalen Hurts is cool, calm, and collected, he's not a rah-rah guy, and because he's not, like, as vocal as other people and doesn't have outbursts on the sideline, and because he prefers to be a flat liner, doesn't mean that he's a bad teammate. His leadership style is great. It's just different than others. And people have continued to talk about this, and they've said Jalen Hurts doesn't even talk with anybody on the sideline. But then when he's mic'd up during that Bears Black Friday game and he makes a mistake, the fumble on the tush push, or he misses that throw to Devontae Smith, he's going up to all of the offensive linemen, all of his weapons. He's apologizing. He's taking accountability, and he's saying, that's on me. So Acho never played with Hurts. Sean Bradley, really good special teams player for the Eagles, who unfortunately tore his Achilles and hasn't played in the NFL since. Also a Temple University legend, T for Temple U, class of 2015 right here, said this: he's a great leader, a great teammate Jalen is, and a great player. Not being biased, I have nothing bad to say about bro. Leads vocally, leads by example, works his ass off, day in and day out, doesn't talk about what he does. He just does it. A true-born winner and competitor. Anybody who's been in the locker room and in a war with him will say the same. He'll be back on top soon. And I agree. Jalen Hurts will be back on top soon. There's also WIP talking about whether or not the Eagles should use an early round pick on Jalen Hurts, because Jeremy Fowler had said that on ESPN. What you should do is lock up Tanner McKee on a multi-year deal, give him that Tyson Bagent type of contract, really good money for a backup. You don't need to draft a quarterback. You have your quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and I want to see what he can do in this Sean Mannion offense, because I do think that he can succeed. I think the lesson here is this: listen to trusted sources. Listen to people who don't have an agenda. Listen to people who aren't going to chase clicks for the point of chasing clicks. Don't forget to give me a follow on social media. You can find me on X, Instagram, TikTok, at Chase_Senior. You can also find me on Facebook, Chase Senior Chat Sports.